Hey guys, well, welcome to another Gauntlet review. So just to refresh everybody's memory, the Gauntlet is a group of us YouTubers that have gotten together to review knives primarily. And it was started by some of the guys with bigger channels. Chris with Preparedmind101 basically had the idea of it. And what he was running into was that a lot of people felt that his reviews, or some people at least, felt that his reviews could potentially be biased because some of these bigger channels actually get stuff sent to them for free, knives and stuff like that, and so they'll do a review on them, and the folks that watch them feel, well, you got that knife for free, you're going to say something good about it no matter what. So Chris had the idea of not keeping the knife and getting a bunch of different folks together to review it differently, and then at the outcome, if that knife survives or whatever, just get everybody's opinion on that knife and then send that knife back to the manufacturer. So we don't really gain anything out of it other than getting to play with different types of knives, which is huge for me because I would never buy these knives that I was able to review. So anyway, that's kind of a short recap on it. Also, my understanding is I'm not really super hip with the tech part of this stuff, but my understanding is that we're going to be starting our own group channel, the Gauntlet, so that if you go to that channel, you will be able to see everybody's review on a particular knife. We'll still have the review on our own individual channels, but that's going to be like a storehouse of all the reviews. Alright, enough of that. So, this actually is a little bit different too, because this is actually Chris's knife. Chris bought it himself, and so yeah, it's his knife. And I messaged him and I said, you know, this is your personal knife. If you want me to review, I mean, what happens if I break it? He assured me I'm not going to break this knife. So let's get going. This is the knife right here with its sheath. This is an Entrek USA Forester. Now basically it's very Mora looking. Okay. This is not something that I would normally review because it's a stainless steel knife. This is 440 stainless steel. Chris seems to know quite a bit about the tempering and the quenching and all that stuff about it. All I know is that a long time ago I started getting into high carbon steels. I started getting into cold steel knives because they were incredibly sharp compared to my stainless steel knives. And I've got a ton of Schrade, Buck, whatever. I've got a lot of stainless steel knives from back in the day. And I was impressed with the high carbon because of its resiliency and and the amazing edge that you can get from it. I am scared that I'm going to break this knife, to be honest with you. I've always been under the impression that stainless steel is brittle and cannot be sharpened, or is very hard to sharpen to a razor edge. I will say right off the bat, this knife has a razor edge. Chris has done his own test. I'm the second person to review this. Chris did his own test with it and sent it to me, and it doesn't look like, I don't think he sharpened it, and it doesn't look like he sharpened it or honed it, whatever you want to say. And it shaves. And actually, Chris, don't do that to me again, man. There's arm hair on this thing already, you gorilla. He shipped it to me with arm hair on it. But anyway, when I got it, I tested the back of my hand, and it for sure shaved. I took my belt, because I'm a nut, and I just wanted to see if it would hone up, and I just stropped it on a belt, and it, you know, I mean, it's razor sharp. So, initial impressions on this knife, it's a cool design. I mean, I like the look of it. I think the handle is a little thin for my preference. Thin this way. It's wide enough, I feel. But it seems to be a little bit thin. But we'll see. I haven't used it yet. That's my initial impressions on it. Entrek USA Forester. This knife retails, I looked on their site, it retails for about 150 bucks. We'll have to see. I mean, that's in the price range of most of my knives. You know, Woodsman Pro, Genesis, my black feather knife, my Pop's Tribute knife, within that range. You know, some are more, some are less. So, this is the sheath that came with that knife. It's a Kydex sheath. That's the belt loop. Chris put this cord on it because there's no way you're going to get a belt through this belt loop. Just no way. And there we go. It just I knew that was going to happen. I just didn't. Yeah, that's pretty loose. There are some knives that come with sheaths that I do not care for in this price range, and normally what I'll do is I'll just send it to Justin, or Justin with Wolfe, or Gary Lawson if I want a Kydex rig made up. So I mean, there are definitely knives in this price range that don't come with very good sheaths, but usually they're usable sheaths. Sorry man, I really don't care for that sheath. That belt loop is way too small. That Kydex should be way more retention than that. That sheath is worthless. Sorry. Okay, so what I'm going to do with this knife, I thought about, you know, what kind of a cool review could I do with this? What kind of a test or unique test could I do with this? For me, the question with this stainless steel is its resiliency. Will it break? Will it be able to perform like my 01 tool steel knives can do? What better way to test that than to do a one-stick fire? Not just any one-stick fire, an oak one-stick fire. I've beat every one of my good knives through an oak that had, you know, not a ton of knots, but at least 1 or 2 good knots. And they all survived. They all did real good. Let's give it a go. Okay, I can't remember if I mentioned 1/8 inch stainless steel. I actually had a little bit of a hard time finding a good stick for it because it is kind of a smallish blade. It's under 4 inches. I forgot exactly how small it is, but it's not super big, but that's okay. I mean, that's not a fault of the knife. I have a lot of different size knives. There are, you know, it's like your kitchen, you know, you've got a lot of different knives for a lot of different tasks. So, having said that, I found a suitable size candidate here. It's got a couple of knots. Got one there, one there. So, alright. I'm going to look for initial damage on the edge. I don't see any, and it actually split that piece of wood pretty good. Alright, I'm going to keep going. That's a good knot right there. Okay, there's really no way I'm going to split that piece of wood, so that's senseless to beat on that knife like that. The split is going the wrong way, so I mean, I hit on it pretty hard. There's no reason to keep going like that. It's a pretty big knot right there. So far so good on the non-breakage of it. No reason to continue on with that. Another little knot it went through. This is purely a strength test. That seems to be doing pretty good, actually. I'm actually kind of surprised. So, you know, I've only been batoning for a few minutes here, but it is a little too thin of a handle. It is fatiguing my hand a little bit, or not really fatiguing it, but I can just feel it. It's gonna make like a sore spot right there. Not really a bruise, but it's too thin right there. Like I said, I like the depth of it, but or the width of it rather, but not the depth. The depth is too thin. Alright, I'm going to start feathering on some of this and see what I feel like. See what it feels like. When I put pressure on that fatigues my hand a lot. I'm liking the steel, I'm not liking the handle as much. These are just some big shavings. You know, you need all sorts of different size materials when you're doing a one stick fire. These are going to be for later to add on. Not all woods will work when making this fuzz stick or whatever, using the spine of the knife here. Not all woods will work. I know poplar doesn't work for beans for me, you know, aspen. But this oak, it shaves very nicely. That's pretty fine. I've had some guys ask me about feather sticking and techniques and stuff. One thing that really helps me is if I think about this stick having edges. So there I just created a couple of edges. I made it flat here, but I've got an angle on this side. And what I want to do is I want to shave that angle off as thin as I can without going insane, because the mosquitoes are all around my ears and it's starting to tick me off. But I want to make those as fine as I can. And every time I make a cut, I rotate the stick because it's created a new angle. And if the stick gets too smooth, you move on to a different stick that you've done if you're doing this one stick fire. Or, like I did before, you make a deep cut, a deep shaving, and start the process over. For your first time or whatever, you definitely want to pick a soft wood. Oak is a pain to feather. Okay guys, let's get to making this fire. I've got all my fuzz here for my fuzz sticks or whatever. I will give you my thoughts on this knife here in a little bit, but first of all we need to make a fire. I'm probably not going to make a sustainable fire just because there's really no need to. I mean, if it catches on fire, it's going to catch on fire. But right now what I want to do is just test how good the spine is with a ferro rod. Looks like it's pretty darn good to me. Now keep in mind this is oak. I wanted to try that method real quick. Personally, when I have such a small tinder base here, I prefer this method. Well, it's definitely not wanting to go up. But that's no fault of the knives. Oak is a tough one-stick fire, I'll tell you that. Wouldn't have hurt to have a little more prep too. Anyway, you get the idea. Okay guys, well, final thoughts on this knife. First of all, let's go through some of the pros. The pros are the knife didn't break. So that's really good. It sharpens up, very sharp. It's actually still quite sharp. I'm not sure if it'll shave. Actually, I think it will, because I mean it just feels actually quite sharp. Depends on where you go on the blade, but I mean it's still shaving pretty good. Yeah, I mean it's, geez, even the part that even the main body of the knife where I actually beat the heck out of it, it's still shaving sharp. Okay, I mean beating it through oak knots and stuff like that and still for it to come out shaving sharp is a pretty good deal. Let's go over, okay, and then the spine, it's a nice spine, nice 90-degree spine. Did a ferro rod real good. I wasn't able to get the fire right away, but I mean that's oak, and that's, you know, I should have had, you know, a fuzz pile this big, but I mean, like I said, that's oak too. Some of the cons. The handle gave me a hot spot it's not quite a blister, but if I'd have worked with this knife anymore, I'd have had a blister with it. But I was using the knife hard. You have to kind of think about what you're going to use your knife for when you buy it. Is this going to be a one-tool option for you? Is this going to be a backup knife, or is this going to be a knife that you carry on your ankle or something when you go wading in the ocean, or, you know, who knows? What are you going to do with this knife? What do you hope to accomplish with this knife? So, for an everyday, hardcore carving, you know, bushcraft, all sorts of whittling and stuff like that knife, this would give me hot spots a lot. If this were to be a once-in-a-while knife, for me to, let's say I lived by the ocean or something like that, and I wanted to, you know, have a corrosion-resistant knife that I could maybe take, you know, diving or something like that, I'd have to test that out a little bit more. But, you know, for occasional use, depending on what you're going to use it for, sure, I could see that. It looks to me like it's got these screws on there. I would still replace the scales on it. It just is uncomfortable. I'm not really sure about the price point on stainless steel knives. I've been kind of out of the game with stainless steel knives for 15 years or more, so I can't really comment on that. I know it's about, like I said, as much as my other high carbon steel knives. Yeah, so another con is the sheath. The sheath is just basically it's just basically a holder for the knife. I mean, I know that's what it is, but basically, to me, this sheath, all it does is protect it during packing, protect it during shipping. That's all this thing does. I mean, it would have been a lot, it could have been even a lot better if it would have just been a decent size handle loop or a belt loop, and maybe put down a little bit farther, or at least a little less flimsy than this thing. It's just, I don't care for that. I mean, I am really impressed with the steel. I do still hold to the idea that this steel is more brittle than 01. I could tell by just some of the real minor things that I can see on the blade. Something that I can see that maybe some other folks wouldn't be able to see, just because of how many times I've used my knives and how many times I've beat them through things I probably shouldn't beat them through. But this was a stress test. It seemed to pass. I mean, it did pretty good. So I'm going to have to start looking at stainless steel with a little different eye, maybe. I'm not part of the field that says it's got to be high carbon steel so that you can bang a rock against it and make a spark. I really could care less about that. I mean, it's kind of a nice bonus, but really the reason I did it is for the less brittleness of the steel and the more resiliency of the steel. This seemed to hold up pretty good. I mean, this is close. This is close to high carbon. I would, you'd have to do pry tests and stuff like that to know for sure, which I wouldn't do with any knife. I don't pry with my knives. Now, as far as sharpening, like I said, it still shaves. Whether or not it sharpens as easy as a high carbon steel, I doubt it. I know I have a D2 steel pocket knife that is a pain in the butt to sharpen, but if you never let it get super dull, you don't have to worry about it. I can hone this back up in 3 minutes and it'll be even more shaving sharp than what it is. So anyway, hope you guys liked the video. Mixed results on it, or mixed feelings about it. There you go.